Hello everyone, and minasama konnichiwa. Welcome to Writings and Adaptations, author Eto Mori interviewed by author Kerri Sakamoto, one of the special events organized by the Japan Foundation Toronto celebrating the Japanese author Eto Mori and her classic book, Colorful. This special talk is paired with the online screening of the feature anime Colorful, directed by Keiichi Hara, which was an adaptation of the book of the same name by Eto Mori. Eto Mori has been a literary star in Japan for over 30 years. She has won numerous major awards in Japan, including the Naoki Prize, one of Japan's most prestigious awards for popular fiction. Colorful has been translated into 7 languages and adapted into 3 films, including this feature anime. Colorful is her first novel to be translated into English. She joins us from Tokyo, Japan. Kerri Sakamoto is the Toronto-born author of 3 novels that explore the Japanese Canadian experience. Her first book, The Electrical Field, received the International Commonwealth Book Prize and was nominated for the Governor General's Literary Award. Kerri is a 2-time recipient of the Canada-Japan Literary Award for her first book and her 2018 novel, Floating City. In 2020, she earned the Writers' Trust Angel Findlay Award given to a mid-career writer in recognition of a remarkable body of work. Kerri joins us from Toronto. And also we have Jocelyne Allen from Toronto providing interpretation for Eto Mori. Now I will pass on to Kerri. Hello, Kerri.
Hello, thank you so much, Shimizu-san. I'm honored to be here tonight with Mori-san and her translator, Jocelyne Allen, especially after reading the book Colorful, which I found to be an entrancing and insightful and wonderful book. I'd also like to acknowledge before we start that here in Toronto, Canada, we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and that Toronto is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And I would urge any Japanese Canadians who are here with us to consider our community's experience of dispossession within the larger history of colonization. And so now to our discussion with Eto Mori. It strikes me that with the publication of Colorful, the story and your ideas are crossing the boundary of language from Japanese into English and of culture, but also of time. The book was published over 20 years ago. So first, do you have any thoughts about what the experience of Makoto, the protagonist, might mean for North American readers, and particularly young people? And second, if you were writing the book today with young adults in mind and with the intensification of social media, would you change anything?
まず最初にこの度はどうもお招きありがとうございます。エトモリと申します。ご質問に関してですが、まず日本での出版から20年経ってもカラフルがまだ新しい読者と出会い続けているのは、やっぱりこの誠の抱えている悩み、つまりティーンエイジャーにとって世界と折り合いをつけるのがとても難しいという問題には、国境や、時代を超えた普遍性があるのではないかと思っています。
First of all, I would just like to say thank you so much for inviting me to speak here today. My name is Eto Mori. As for your question, well, yeah, it has been 20 years since the publication of the book in Japanese. And the fact that it's continued to get new readers all of this time and in this new place, I think that really speaks to how Makoto's troubles, the way he faces the world and the difficulties in it really do cross borders and time.
北米でも最近子どものいじめの問題が深刻になっていると伺いましたが、日本でもカラフルを描いてから30年、20年が経った今でもいじめの問題は残念ながらなくなっていません。これはやはり大人の社会の反映かもしれませんが、強い者が弱い者をいじめる、ターゲットにするという問題は今でも普遍的な問題として今子どもたちを苦しめ続けていると思います。
I recently heard that kids being bullied and bullying is actually a real problem in North America recently. And in the 30, 20 years, however long since I've written Colorful, since Colorful was written, there's still the issue of bullying in Japanese or in Japan that still hasn't gone away. And I think maybe it's a reflection of, adult society where the strong sort of pick on the weak, and it's an ongoing problem for kids. It's an ongoing struggle for them.
私は子どもの近くに存在するわけではないんですけれども、彼らがどこか逃避の場所を求めているとしたら、読書というのは一つの逃避の場所になりうるのではないかというのは常に考えています。そしてもう一つのご質問ですけれども、もしも今日の若者や SNS を念頭にこの小説を書いたとしたら、もちろんいじめの内容ですとか、広かの援助交際のあり方などは変わった書き方になってきたと思います。ただきっと物語の本質は意外と変わらなかったんじゃないのかなと思います。というのもやはりそのティーンエイジャーが世界となかなか折り合いをつけられないという痛みというのはいつの時代にも普遍的なものであると思うからです。以上です。
As for, with children, and I'm not so close in age with kids anymore, but I think like to have a place to escape to get away from the world to, I think that reading can be one of those places. It can be a refuge of sorts. As for your other question, if I was going to write the book again in this world of like social media and all this online, the shape and the form perhaps of like, for instance, the bullying or Hiroka's compensated kind of dating situation, I think that would change. But the story itself would be surprisingly the same, I think, because these frustrations that teenagers are facing and this world that they're living in, those ideas are universal.
Yes, I would agree. I think it is a very enduring story. So my next question was, clearly your book is an inspiring one, not just to readers, but also to film directors, and so much so that 3 film directors have adapted your book into this animated film, Colorful, and also, which surprised me, I read a Thai live action film called Homestay, which is described as a drama, thriller, fantasy. And of course, I haven't had a chance to see it, but they certainly seem very different. And it must be fascinating in a way to see your book envisioned in such different ways. And so I wondered, as a writer, is it difficult to let someone else take over the story, especially if the film seems to diverge very much from the book?
実はお話しすると、私自身昔アニメーションのシナリオを書いていたことがあるんです。小説を書き始める前にアニメーションのシナリオを書いて、実際その他の方が書いた小説や漫画をアニメーションのシナリオに書き換えるような作業を行っていました。
Actually, I personally, before I was writing this book, I used to write animation scripts. So I would take the work of other people and adapt them into animation scripts.
Oh, that's so interesting.
そうなんです。で、時には大胆なアレンジを加えたりもしてきたので、今実際に自分が原作者の立場になった時に、 私の作品はあんまりいじらないでとは言えないんです。
Yeah, it was interesting. And I used to do a lot of rearranging of the original works that I was working on. So now that it's my work that is being the basis of something, I can't really say too much, you know?
自分の作品が今映画化していただくときには、こういうふうに考えるようにしています。小説というのはただ私一人の脳の中から生まれる作品ですけれども、映像作品というのは監督さんですとか音響さんですとか美術ですとか、ものすごく多くの方が携わって、その多くの方の脳細胞の数といったら莫大な量だと思うので、それによって生まれる何か新しいものがあるはずだと。私の脳だけからは生まれない、彼らがいたからこその新しい魅力なり、発展なりが映像作品にはもたらされるはずだというのを常々期待しているところです。
So, as for, my work becoming made into a movie or something, I have kind of this way of thinking about it. With writing a novel, that's me and that's my brain alone. But when it comes to making a movie, there's so many people involved. You have the director, the art director, camera people, and there's all these brains involved, so many more brains, and they are giving birth, they're bringing about something new and something that my brain alone couldn't manage, but all of them coming together bring about this new exciting thing that makes me really personally excited.
よく映像化された作品が原作のイメージに似てるかどうかって聞かれることがあるんですけれども、私は映像が原作のイメージにそっくりそのままである必要はないと思っていて、むしろその原作のイメージそのままが映画になるんだったら、映画にする意味はあんまりないのではないかと思っています。いろんな方が加わることで原作ではない何かに生まれ変わるからこそ、映画にして大きなスクリーンに映し出す意味があるのではないかと思っています。
Whenever my work is, turned into a movie, I'm often asked about that, like whether, or whenever any work is turned into a movie, you're asked about if it's similar, is it the same, as the original work. And I think really there's no need for them to be the same. In fact, they shouldn't be the same, to have the original work reflected exactly in the movie. It's just, well, there's no point in having a movie then. It's because it's changed, it's because it's transformed that there's meaning in bringing it to the big screen.
I was really interested to hear, I read that Kazuo Ishiguro-san remarked that with one of his books, and I believe it was The Remains of the Day, he thought he had written a book that could not be adapted into a film. It was just not adaptable. It was a book and that was it. And of course, the film that was produced won huge accolades and was very successful and brought more readers to his books. And I wonder what your thoughts are about novels and films, and what challenges or opportunities do you see in adapting a book into a film?
私も和尾石黒さんの作品は大好きで、火の名残は映画でも見たんですけど、非常に原作の世界を、リアルに鮮やかに表現したいい映画だったと思いました。
I actually love Kazuo Ishiguro myself, like all his work, and I saw Remains of the Day too, and I thought the original was really perfectly realized in the film. It was amazing.
作家の立場で何か映画化によってもたらされるものがあるとすると、やはりまず第一は、まだ自分の原作を読んでいない読者がその映画と触れ合うことで、もしかしたら新しい読者になってくれるかもしれない。もしかしたら映画館の帰りに本屋によって自分の本を手に取ってくれるかもしれない。その新しい読者の出会いというのが作者にとっては大きな、アドバンテージの一つだと思います。
As a writer, to speak of what comes around from having what is brought to the work from the movie. I think the biggest thing is that you're reaching out to readers who wouldn't have had any contact with your work before, maybe. So they're coming into contact with the film and thus your work, and maybe they're going to become a new reader because of that. Maybe on their way home from the theater, they're going to stop by a bookstore and buy one of your books. So I think that's a huge advantage as a writer for having your work turned into a movie.
もう一つの大きなメリットは、映画になることで自分の書いた小説がと違う形でまた出会えるということですね。いろんなスタッフの方たちが加わって、原作を膨らましてくれたり、展開してくれたりして、原作から生まれたものだけれども、それはやっぱり映画監督のものであり、しばらく会わなかった友達が全く別の姿で帰ってきたような、いつもとてもフレッシュな印象を受けて、なんかもう一度自分の作ったものを違う形で出会えるというのが映画の魅力の一つだと思います。
I think one other really big merit of having your work turned into a movie is you re-encounter your own work in this new form. You get to see what you did in a totally different light. So the staff on the movie, they come along and they expand on certain things, they develop other things. And this is, the director's hand at play there, feeling out what they're going to bring to the screen. And it's sort of like when you haven't seen a friend for a long time and then they show up and they're looking all like new and fresh. And it's exciting to encounter your work, your ideas in a totally different form.
That's a lovely way of putting it. So actually, what was interesting to me was that the character of Parapura in the film, I was struck, and especially because I had read the book and then saw the movie immediately after, I was like, oh, that Pura looks very different from the way I imagined it. And he's much shorter and he doesn't have wings and he's much younger. And so I wonder what your response was to and I realize that you've just talked about that a bit, but I wondered if you had any, you've ever had any real, real surprise like how differently the characters turned out to be on film versus how you imagined them and wrote them.
原監督がその映画を作り始める作業に入られる前に一回お会いしてるんですけれども、その時に原監督が確かおっしゃったと思うんですよね。僕はプラプラは子供にしようと思っているとその時に伺って、その時はちょっと確かにそうなんだ子供なんだって驚いたんですけれども、でも原監督はもうなんか迷いのない感じだったので、多分その理由は説明されませんでしたけれども、原監督の中にはプラプラは子供でなければならない確かな理由、根拠があるのだなというふうに感じました。
So I actually met the director of the film once before he got into the making of it. And I'm pretty sure at the time he said to me that he was going to make Pura a little kid. And when I heard that from him then, I was like, oh, okay, so he's going to be a kid? Okay. But he was so certain about it. There was no doubt in his eyes or in his voice. He was just very like, yes, it's a kid. And he didn't really say any reason, but I really did feel like he must have had a very strong reason within himself for making that choice.
むしろ実際に映画館で映画を見た時に驚いたのはプラプラが子供だったことよりも関西弁だったことだったんですけれども関西出身だったんだと思ってそこはちょっとびっくりしました。でも映画を見て最終的に感じたのはプラプラは原作では大人の外見は大人で羽が生えていて、顔も普通の人間なんですけれども、なんかそういう普通の男性を天使としてスクリーンに出すと、やっぱりいくらこの人は天使だと言ってもみんなには人間なので、どうしてもそこに生々しい人間臭が出てしまうのかなと かそれを緩和するためにもしかして監督は子供にしたのかなと、これは私の想像なんですけれども、映画を見た後でそんなことを思いました。
What surprised me when I saw the film, actually more than the fact that Pura Pura was a little kid, was that he spoke Kansai dialect. And I was like, oh, he's from Kansai. Okay. And, when I actually saw the film, like if you actually put with Pura Pura in his like adult form, no one can really see him as an angel anyway. So he's just like this normal guy. So why is he talking? Why is he so brash and sort of like out there like that? If you had him on the screen like that, maybe it would be a bit strange, like it wouldn't work. So maybe to mitigate that effect, the director decided to make him a kid. It's kind of what I was feeling after I saw the film.
It's interesting because I thought in the book, Pura Pura was sort of like a childish adult, and sometimes with acting up and with and being sort of having these antics, and it was interesting to me how in the film he's drawn in shades of gray, as if he's a kind of old soul of a child, and so I thought that was very interesting, and sometimes is like a childish adult or an adult like child. So yeah, so that was very interesting and charming, like a charming difference, I think. And I wanted to tell you that I watched the film with my husband and my 14-year-old son, who he does watch some anime, and he definitely loves the film of Miyazaki, and yes, and so but he also likes video games and action films, but he really enjoyed the film, and after he said, wow, that was very deep and interesting. And so we're now I'm rereading the book with him, and he actually likes to sit on the balcony outside his bedroom and under the night sky when we read together at night with a flashlight. And so it made me think about how films can be a powerful influence for young people, and maybe more attractive than sitting down with a book. But do you think that a film can help viewers visualize a story, or sometimes limit their imagination?
そうですね。映画はとても本当に映像にして映像の圧倒的な力があるので、文章を視覚化する、ビジュアル化することに対しては圧倒的に力があると思います。例えばカラフルな英語の中で今はもう走っていない絹田線の多摩電が復活するシーンがあるんですけれども、何とも言えないのどかな背景の中を蘇った多摩電がこうゆっくりゆっくりコトコトコトコト走っていくあのシーン、原作にはないシーンですが、あのシーンが私はとても好きで、あれってやっぱり蘇らせ方というのは小説にはできないことなんですね。で、映像だからこその力であり、もっと言うと実写であっても雰囲気を作ることは難しいかもしれない。多分原監督は何かアニメーションにしかできないことをやりたかったのかなと思っています。
I do think when you're making a work into a film, you're turning it into an image, and that has this overwhelming power. To make that text visual is really, really powerful. And in Colorful, the movie, when I was watching the movie, there's a scene with a train, the Tamaden, that's no longer running, but it's this just chugging along through the countryside, really like a very peaceful scene, and it's very atmospheric. And that scene is not in the book at all, but it's really just this dreamy kind of moment that you really can't produce that kind of atmosphere in the same way in a novel like that. And I think that the director was really trying to do something with the book that could only be done in the format of anime.
なんかそのようにして監督が差し出す映像というのは、小説の内容をビジュアル化して限定するというよりは、むしろ監督が作り上げたもう一つの新しい物語なのではないかと思います。それは、原作をきっかけに監督の中から生まれた新しい物語、それを楽しんで見ています。はい。
So with things like that, you know, the director is bringing out these images, these new ideas, and I think that it not only does that not limit the novel or the power of the novel, I think that with the novel as the original work, it gives birth, it creates a new story and a new idea of the story inside of the director, and you get that on I think that's a great thing.
Yes, that really struck me when I watched that, because it was clearly another dimension, even historical, and it gave a sort of it was very poignant, I think, for that scene of bonding between the two friends. So that was quite lovely. So I wanted to end, I guess, because we have just a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you, and maybe this has been asked of you many times, but what the title of the book and the film "Colorful" means to you. And in Japanese, it's the same, isn't it? Colorful. Yeah.
カラフルは日本語でもカラフルのタイトルで意味としては英語と変わらないと思うんですけれども、誠を取り巻くカラフルな世界、眩しいほどの光が渦巻く世界で、いい色もあって汚い色もあって、そんな中でもみくちゃになりながら生きている、この世界の象徴のようなイメージでしてこのタイトルをつけました。
So it is colorful in Japanese, and it has the same meaning as the word does in English, basically. So it's this world that, you know, Makoto lives in. It's colorful, it's dazzling, and there are good colors, there are ugly colors, there are all sorts of different, you know, colors, basically. And you're living in the middle of this jumble of all of these things. And I think the word colorful is sort of symbolic of that world, which is why I gave it the title Colorful.
Well, it's a wonderful title, and I think brings something almost joyful to the journey of Makoto, which, you know, obviously goes through a tragic journey, but becomes something joyful and positive. So it's a very beautiful title.
ありがとうございます。そのジャーニーという言葉が本当にしっくりきますね。彼の光の中の旅。
That, yeah, the word journey that you use, that really clicks, like that is really it, right? It is his journey that he goes on.
Yes, I think having a son who's 14 years old, who's going through these phases of trying to understand who he is and his place in the world, it really made an impression on him. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think that concludes our interview, and I wanted to say thank you. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Mori-san. I apologize that I don't speak Japanese. Sansei desu. And thank you, Jocelyne, for your wonderful translation of the book and and the interview answers from Mori-san. And I also wanted to mention that there will be another live stream event called Parallel Worlds, which will talk about the process and other dimensions of translating novels, and particularly translating colorful. And that will take place on Thursday, November 18th at 8 p.m. And it's also a free event.
I'm honored to be here too. I'm really happy to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you for your impressive questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your very interesting and thoughtful answers.
And Jocelyne, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
You always help me.
I'm glad I can be here to help.
Sure.
Thanks for coming too. It's always a pleasure to work with you.